Hi, thanks very much for joining me again. What I'm about to attempt today is a ridiculously long mill using one of our Pro-grind mill mechanisms. I've got on the lathe in front of me here a piece of wood. It's oak. Bear with me and I'll tell you how long it is. The length of the wood has been decided by the size drills I've got, and I have got some very long auger drill bits. This is just under 800 millimeters, 31 inches, or 2 foot, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 foot 7 long. This is for the body I'm going to do. The most difficult thing about doing this is going to be the drilling part of it, holding it and drilling it. I haven't tried it before, but I'm going to try it just because I like a challenge, basically. I might, for once, not say an awful lot and film in bits. I'll try and make it as real as possible, and if I cock it up, then you will see the cock-ups that I've made and things that I struggle with. Obviously, if you're going to make one this size, you need a fairly big lathe. So I'm nearly at the maximum of my lathe here. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this extremely long spindle that is about 55 mils square round, and then look at holding it and drilling it somehow. Right, in my infinite wisdom, I think I've pressed the wrong button on the camera. What I've got is a 42mm drill bit, and I've drilled into there 20mm, which is what it says on my fitting guide here. The wood's held in the chuck at this end. I've stopped the lathe before I pull that out. If I pull that out, I fear the weight might just knock this out of alignment. So what we've really got to do now is just concentrate on the drilling and fitting of the internal part at this end. Once that's done, I can mount it between centres, and then it's going to be much easier to actually turn, and much more secure as well. It's the drilling bit that's really quite difficult. My next drill size is 38mm, and that's got to go up 55 mils, which actually is pretty much the length of the bit. So I've got to go all the way up till I get to the Jacob's chuck here with this one. And the nib of the drill bit fits in the little nib section that was left by the larger bit. So just make sure you hold the Jacob's chuck Next comes the real tricky bit. In order to get all the way up this ridiculous piece of wood that was a harebrained scheme to start with, I got to get this. I'm using an auger drill bit because you can get really long ones, and I happen to have this really long one. However, as you can see, I can't, if that goes in the chuck there, I can't, the lathe just isn't long enough, and the lathe is at full extension here. So I'm going to have to start off with a slightly larger auger bit. There's two reasons why I'm using an auger bit. One is because I've got them, and the second thing is because they've got this pointy bit, and this pointy bit, this little nib section, is going to fit into where the Forstner bit came out of the last one. So the idea is it keeps it central. Ideas and practice are two entirely different things. You can see if I hold that, I can't actually get that in. So what I'm actually going to have to do is slot that in there like so, and do it that way and bring that up. And I'm hoping when I've done this bit that I might be able to get the next one in. I might have to go for a slightly mid-size one, a bit longer one, to get a little bit further up there. It's quite tricky. It is important to mention at this stage, what I'm doing is I'm going from a larger drill bit to a smaller one. If you go the other way round you will have more difficulties because the point of this type of drill bit won't centre. It'll start to move, and then you'll have movement, and won't be drilling down the middle of the shaft here. So I've done 25 mils here. This is actually 20 mils, so we're going to be getting slightly smaller as we go in. I'm going to see if I can find a slightly longer 25 mil drill to get in there just a little bit further. Right, what I'm actually going to have to do is shorten this, because try as hard as I might, and I've lost them now. The next size drill bit I've got is this bit, and it's just too long. It just comes way past. I've had the tailstock off the end of the lathe and fitted it in the Jacob's chuck. I cannot get it in far enough, so I'm going to have to lose 16 centimeters off that end there in order to do it. But it's still going to be pretty long. I think in actual fact, looking at it, this bit of wood should have been a bit bigger. It's going to be quite narrow down at this end here, but it's an interesting thing to do. So my main shaft is now 620 mils, or a fractionally over 2 foot, so I can get the next drill bit in, which I have just managed to slot in place. So we'll move that up there and carry on drilling the next bit. So at this end I'm starting off with a 25 mil Forstner bit, and I found a little light that might help see what I'm doing. I don't know whether it's going to help you or me, but let's see what happens. Finally we've got through. I've used my 20 mil super long auger bit, and that goes right the way through. This hole up here is actually 25 mils. The 25 mil one was long enough to get all the way through. Right. So now what I can look at doing is mounting it between centres, and instead of fighting with all this lot, actually enjoying some of the turning. So in order to mount this between centres, I need, basically I'm going to have a live centre in a tailstock for this end, up that end of the lathe. There's my finger up that end of the lathe. At this end, what I really need is a dead centre. Well, there aren't any dead centres as far as I'm aware, big enough to take that 41 mil, 42 mil hole. So I've got a scrap bit of wood. I'm just going to round it off, put a little point on it, and that is going to be my homemade dead centre up there. So this is the point where we cheat a little bit, because the kit I'm using, you'll see the shaft is only so long, and we don't have spare shafts or extendable shafts. So whilst this is actually 2 foot long, we're actually only going to use half of it. I'm going to just lay the mechanism across there and take the little end cap and push it on there, and I'm just going to put a little mark as to roughly where it can be filled. I'm going to just score a black line in there, maybe 3 black lines, and make it decorative, just to mark the point at which it can be filled up. Because I haven't tried this yet, but I suspect that if we make the shaft that we're going to have to do, make the top and a shaft to come down and connect onto this, if we fill it full of peppercorns, you won't be able to feed the shaft down to the end to get it on. I might be wrong, but I suspect that's probably what's going to happen. There may be a way of fertiling and doing it, but for the sake of doing this, I'm just going to put 3 little rings, burn marks in here, just to mark where we reckon the pepper is actually going to be filled up to. So the next thing I'm going to do is to make the top for turning. There's generally 2 ways you can do this. The first one is to make a little spigot that goes inside there, or we can cut a rebate around the top which is going to fit around the outside, and it's the second method that I'm going to do. I just prefer it that way. Instead of making a little bit to slot in there which is quite small, I'm going to make a bigger section to fit over the top there. So I'm going to measure that distance there, cut a rebate in here, and then we'll look at some kind of fitting and some kind of rod that's going to get us all the way down the shaft here, to where the mechanism is going to be inside. I've made the top and it fits on the outside, and I don't like it, it looks horrible, so I'm going to make another one. The next one I make, I'm going to get to fit inside, and I'm going to make it like a ball, and I'm going to make it in oak so it matches. That's the plan anyway. Right, now what we've got to do is check it fits and connect a great big rod to this on the other part of the mill. Let's zoom out a bit and just double check. I think it might be a bit small, to be honest, but let's have a look. Well, it's not too bad. It looks, I think, better than the other one because it's made from the same piece of wood. I think what I really should have done is curve that in a little bit more, and I might do that. See if I can do that manually. I wonder if I can. Yes, I'm going to pop this back on the lathe and just see if I can just curve that end in a little bit more. It's between centres, so it should be possible. I've got it between centres again, so I'm just going to curve off just the end of this just to make the fitting of the knob and the main body look just a little bit better. Right, that looks a bit better, doesn't it? Now what we got to do is try and link the bits on the inside. I think this might be the tricky bit. Now what we need to do now is look at fitting the mechanism, which is here, into the main body, and creating the extension from the grinding cap down to where this end is here. Now this is the plastic fitting cap, and as you'll see, when it comes to connecting onto the grind, it just pushes on, and as it pushes on, it splays the plastic out a bit. So I'm going to need to make a connector here, have a shaft and another connector up to that end here, and what I'm going to use is an M8 threaded rod. I've probably said that already, and I'm going to have to make some kind of connector down here. I'm going to use another one of our wood insert screws and a piece of wood to insert this into. That's my plan. Then I'm going to measure, then I'm going to trim the rod to the right length, and then we're going to put the whole lot together, and it's going to work brilliantly, he says with absolute confidence. Let's see what happens. I've got a scrap of wood. I'm going to do an 11.5mm hole for the wood insert screw next in this end, and I need an 11mm hole the other end for the plastic bit. This is just my way of attempting to do this. I'm sure there's lots of other ways that it can be done. Hang on, let me show you. Right, if I hold this here, you'll see that the shaft, it's quite loose. It will turn there, no problem at all, but it's better if it just goes a little bit tighter, just a little bit of resistance, and it'll hold the cap down. That's how these work. They're simple, but they're quite effective. So what I need to do is leave a little bit of space for that metal to come out of there, if you can see that. So that's why I've drilled a little bit further into here. And hopefully I'll take that out, mount it on the mandrel, then we're going to turn it round, and then we're going to see if we can get that to connect on the end of there with a shaft. Are you with me? What I am interested in is the size of this, because this is the part inside that I think will fit in. It's 17 mils and it's got to fit inside a 25mm hole, so there's not going to be a lot of space either side, which is why I think the peppercorns probably won't fit either side of that. There are, I admit, probably other ways of, there's only, that fitting's got to be 11 mils. It's possible that I could have just actually cut a thread into the wood there maybe, or used another, I don't know, if you've got a metal lathe, maybe cut your own piece of metal to your own fitting to go in. But I've tried it this way, so let's see how we get on. So now we'll have a look at the fittings. So the 11mm hole with the plastic part, that's going to slot in there, and it's really quite tight to go in there, and it needs to be. Probably could have put the end on there. Right, anyway, that's done. That pushes on there like so, and there we've got the start of an extension. What we now need to do is get our threaded rod, which I've got over there somewhere, nowhere near cut to length, and look at, can we insert that into there? Yes, we can, look. Right. This is very much a learning curve from this point in. Right. I think I'm going to get a bit of threaded rod and just roughly estimate the length that I need to have it. So where's my tape measure? So that's going to go in there like so. Sorry, let me reposition the camera. Right, let me explain my ridiculous thought process. So what I've got is the fitting I've just made here, the main mill mechanism, and that's going to fit in there roughly to there. So I need to measure the distance I need for the shaft along here. Right, with the trusty tape measure, and the thread needs to be a bit longer because it's got to go up into this here, and it's also got to screw into there. So I'm looking at, if I do it to about 33 centimeters, I think I might be about, possibly about right. I've got about 33 centimeters here. That screws into there like so. That's going to fit into there like so. It's sticking out quite a long way. I think possibly it's a bit too long. Let's have a fitting of the unit. Right, there hopefully you can see the units fitted. I haven't used any special tools or cutting. That's in there quite nice and firmly. If I need to get it out, I possibly can by pushing this end of the rod. Sorry, it's so long it's difficult to film. If I push this end of the rod, it probably would push the mechanism out, but I'm not planning to get it out again. It's tucked in there, it stands quite nicely without the bits coming out. This, however, I think is a bit too long, because I don't think that is going to screw all the way onto there. I need to hold the bottom. Sorry, you can't see, can you? Don't think that's going to screw all the way onto there. I'm going to need to figure out how much we need to take off. Now, you can see there, the gap I've got there, that is the distance I need to take off the metal shaft. And that distance is what it is. I need to measure it. I have two measuring devices on the table, and neither of which are any good. I need this one. Right. That looks remarkably like 15 millimeters to me. If I take off 15 millimeters, that should be pretty much spot on. Right. You can, of course, glue these parts if you want to. The next question is, can I feed that down there and actually get it to locate on the mechanism? But it's not located on there at the moment. It's taking a bit of fiddling, but I have got it in there, and it does now. You'll probably hear it. Don't know whether you can see it turning. There we go. It is actually grinding. It's a bit tricky locating this long shaft onto the connector down here, but that does work. The next thing that I need to try is to actually put some peppercorns in it and see how we go from there, so I can actually show it to you working. Right, I've got a white thing, I've got some peppercorns. I'm going to be the first to admit to you that the shaft, when I take the shaft off here, it's really quite difficult to relocate it back. I've done it 2 or 3 times. It helps with a decent bit of light to see down the end to see where it is. That is quite tricky. There is another way of doing it, and that is actually by taking, and I might do it this way, if you unscrew the black knob on there, just make sure you don't lose it, obviously. Let's put it on there. You can actually take the centre burr out and actually fill it from the bottom, and I'll do it that way. I shall be I think that pepper pot is more ridiculous than my mill. Right, put that back on there again. Screw the adjuster knob on here, because these Pro-grind mechanisms adjust from the bottom. Right, let's bring that there. Let's have a go. Does it work? It would appear, I'm going to keep grinding so you can see, but there we have ground pepper. Unfortunately we don't have smell-o-vision, but I can certainly smell that. So there we go, that is a Pro-grind mill with a ridiculously size. There's all the pepper I've just ground there. Right, okay, we'll have a quick recap. So I thought, before we look at what I've actually just done, look at a normal, that's a 6-inch mill. This mill is one that I have in my kitchen. It's the same mechanism as the one you've just seen me use. I think this is about 14 inches tall, something like that. The design is inspired by the kitchen taps, and we actually love this one, so there's an idea. for a design, but just put into perspective the size of the one I've just made that I can't actually get on the, let me stand them on there. You can't, I just can't get them in the same shot easily, because one is, there we go, that gives you an idea there of the size. So it's more than twice the length of that. It's absolutely ridiculous, I fully admit, but I just wanted to have a bash at it to see if it could be done, and the answer is yes, it can be done. You might want to extend yours a little bit, maybe not to make it however long that is. I don't know how long it is. Let's find out. What's the final length I've managed to make here? 670 millimeters, 26.5 inches, 2 foot 2 and a bit. That's quite a size mill. I hope at the very least that has been interesting and maybe give someone just a little bit of inspiration as to what you might be able to do with one of these kits. They're quite versatile, they're great at grinding pepper, they're quite good fun, and there's a few different things you could do with them. I'm just going to finish off by saying, before everyone writes into me and says you could have done it this way, you could have done it that way, you could have done it the other way, yes, I'm well aware of that. As I've gone through this process, I've thought maybe I could have made the main body in sections and joined them together. That would have been much easier for drilling, because drilling has been the most difficult part of this process. I could have, with the joint part in the middle, I could have tapped that into a variety of different mediums. I could have tapped it straight into wood instead of using the wood insert screw, but I find using the wood insert screws is pretty easy, and they're all reusable as well. I've used, I've forgotten how many size drills that I've used in the process. I've had a couple of fittings that we sell in our range. I've been to Toolstation and I've bought a metre of M8 rod. I think it was about £2.50, something like that. It's next to nothing. And I've got this much left as well. So there we go. The most ridiculous mill you've ever seen that I have been asked before now. One of my friends wants a ridiculously long mill. I hope now you might be able to make one. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you at the next video. Take care. Bye bye for now.